With the control room. I can't hear them at all. I hear music. I hear people out on the Walk of Champions, but I can't hear Jen or Zach.
30 seconds.
So I'm just going to have to wing this thing.
Live from Bryant-Denny Stadium with special guests, feature stories, and a comprehensive look at Alabama's upcoming game. It's Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23. Brought to you by Alpha.
And good morning, everybody. Welcome in to Crimson Tide Kickoff right here on WVUA 23, presented by our good friends at Alpha Insurance. With the early kickoff this morning for Alabama and Southern Miss, we're going to come to you early as well. So grab some breakfast or a cup of coffee, and let's get Crimson Tide Kickoff going because we've got a great show ahead of us over the next hour. Let's get going as we always do with our Bama headlines.
For the latest on the Crimson Tide, you don't need the newspaper. You need Bama headlines.
Well, the Alabama receiving corps is something else, and I mean that as a compliment. The Tide has 4 players on the roster right now, all over 1,000 career receiving yards. Think about that. Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle reached the milestone with their performances last week at South Carolina, joining Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs in the 1,000-yard receiving club. Now, this is the first time in Alabama football history that a quartet has shared that milestone on the same team. The last time the Tide had 3 receivers with 1,000 career receiving yards was in 2016. O.J. Howard, Calvin Ridley, and Ardarius Stewart. For a non-conference matchup against Southern Mississippi, it certainly brings back some fond memories for the fans, most notably the catch by Tyrone Prothro 14 years ago on September 10, 2005 against Southern Miss. Watch it one more time. We caught up with Prothro this week, and we'll have that story for you later on CTKO. And we're coming at you early today because Bama will be coming at us early today. An 11 a.m. kickoff this morning marks the 11th non-conference home game in September since 2014 that has been a morning or early afternoon kickoff. Athletics Director Greg Byrne is doing his best to beat the heat for the fans, adding water stations and misting fans. But the Tide faithful, they're ready to have some evening games and check out those new LED lights as well. While Bama may be stepping outside of the Southeastern Conference this week, the Crimson Tide can't take its foot off the gas against the Golden Eagles. Southern Miss is an explosive football team, evident by last weekend's 47-42 victory over the Troy Trojans at Troy, in which the Golden Eagles posted 626 offensive yards. It's a lot of yards. Southern Miss is led by quarterback Jack Abraham, who threw for 463 yards last week and is the catalyst for the Eagles' hurry-up spread attack. Alabama will be the second SEC team the Golden Eagles will have faced in 2019. They fell to Mississippi State in Starkville in Week 2, 38-15. Alabama head coach Nick Saban is aware of how dangerous Southern Miss can be if Bama isn't prepared.
They score a lot of points. They do a lot of things on offense that obviously, you know, they're in the top 10 in the country or whatever in pass offense, 347 yards a game. It's because they got good skill players. They got a good scheme. They dish the ball all over the perimeter and make you play in space all the time, which we need to do a good job of. The quarterback does a good job of executing. Defensively, they're very active, on defense, try to create a lot of stunning and moving. And this is one of the most explosive teams that we've played on special teams.
So Bama can't afford to fall asleep at the wheel this week, or they may just find themselves mired in a trap game between SEC opponents. The Tide needs to keep up the intensity. CTKO's Rhea Thornton is standing by now with us live on the Walk of Champions with more on Bama's quest to keep bringing it. Rhea?
Thanks, Gary. It's an early start for the Crimson Tide today, but that isn't the only obstacle that they'll be facing. switching between conference and non-conference play. The question is whether or not the Crimson Tide will be able to keep up that same intensity.
Coming back to Bryant-Denny today, the Tide will be taking on two opponents, Southern Miss and themselves. They will be battling to keep that same intensity from last week's SEC matchup for the non-conference game.
Well, we approach every game the same. We treat every opponent the same. So I feel like no matter if we're playing somebody in the SEC or not, we're going to approach it the same no matter who it is.
With Southern Miss ranked in the top 10 for passing offense, the Crimson Tide has its plate full. Head coach Nick Saban explains that today isn't going to be a day to slow down.
That's Quez. Quez at the 10, at the 5. That's a touchdown, Southern Miss.
This is not a time for us to be thinking that we don't have to prepare well and work to focus on the things that we need to do to play well in our preparation for, this game. So we need to go to work on that.
Although the Tide is favored against the Golden Eagles by 39 points, Alabama is preparing as they always do, ready to execute their game plan.
It's a very good team. They got a good passing game. It's going to be good for us. At the end of the day, it's football. Football is football. So no matter who we play, you always have to respect your opponent. You always have to come out and execute, what we're doing.
With the game just under 2 hours away from kickoff, we are eager to see what level of intensity the Tide brings into Bryant-Denny Stadium. Live from the Walk of Champions, I'm Rhea Thornton. Back to you, Gary.
Well, thank you, Rhea. Nice report. The Tide certainly looked prepared this week during practice, even with Monday afternoon as an off day to rest and recover. On the other side, Southern Miss knows that they'll have their hands full, and more than full, really, with the second-ranked Crimson Tide. Alabama looked explosive on offense last week against the Gamecocks, rolling up 571 yards, and Tua Tagovailoa and company were electric with 444 yards and 5 touchdowns through the air. And Southern Miss head coach Jay Hobson, well, he knows who he's going up against, the challenge that awaits, and he also realizes that the Golden Eagles need to be at their best in every phase of the game to have an opportunity to be competitive.
We've got to play great in all phases, offensively, defensively, and special teams. It's no secret we're playing an outstanding football team, a great football team, and an extremely well-coached football team. So, again, we're going to have to certainly be on our A+ game this week, and that starts today, making sure we're preparing and we're practicing and we're paying attention to details. And because there's no team that's going to have our respect more than Alabama.
Let's take a look at the series history between the Tide and the Golden Eagles. Obviously, Alabama's dominated, but they've met quite a few times, and Southern Miss has won 5 of these games, and there are not a lot of teams that have 5 wins against Alabama outside of the SEC. So even though Alabama's dominated, Southern Miss has had some success. And the last time they met in 2014, the Tide rolled 52-12 was the final score. Well, it's still early here in Tuscaloosa, and it's expected to warm up a bit before kickoff at 11 a.m. CTKO weather specialist Danielle Davis joins us now on the Walk of Champions with a look at the game day forecast. Danielle?
Gary, it feels absolutely wonderful out here, and I haven't had anyone come up and complain to me about the weather yet, so that's always a good sign for the day. Taking a look at our tower cam right now, beautiful across the Walk of Champions, and temperatures in the mid-70s, 76 here in Tuscaloosa, 74 in Birmingham. Dew points, though, it feels wonderful. We are looking at dew points right now in the 60s, 61 in Tuscaloosa. Dry, comfy conditions for the game, and your game forecast shaping up just like this. We're looking at 11 a.m. kickoff. Temperatures going to be in the low 80s. Mostly sunny skies for the entire afternoon today, heating up into the upper 90s and cooling down this evening into the mid-70s. That's your game forecast. Gary?
Thank you, Danielle. It does. It sounds great because, my gosh, it's been so brutally hot. We're getting a nice break. Well, another warm September afternoon in the cards, but not too hot, as Danielle said. And we got a heck of a show still in the cards for you at home. When we come back, we'll catch up with Tyrone Prothro, who made in 2005 arguably one of the best catches in Crimson Tide history, in college football history, against Southern Mississippi. Plus, we'll take a look at just how prolific the Alabama offense has been so far this season. These stories and much more ahead here on Crimson Tide Kickoff, presented by Alpha Insurance. program audio. Yeah, I got her. I just got her. Talk again, Jen. Yeah, I got you now. Good. I got her. I don't know what we punched. Yeah, really. Well, here's a look at the AP Top 25. Not much change. Clemson, Bama, Georgia, LSU, and Oklahoma are the top 5, followed by Ohio State, Notre Dame, Auburn, Florida, and Utah. Michigan and Texas are 11 and 12. And we got a tie at 13 with Wisconsin and Penn State. So number 14 is not in the poll. But UCF is at 15, Oregon 16. The SEC checks in with A&M at number 17. Iowa, Washington State, and Boise State round out the top 20. Virginia checks in at number 21, followed by 3 straight Pac-12 teams, Washington, Cal, and Arizona State. And clocking in the final spot of the top 25, the TCU Horned Frogs. And welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff presented by Alpha Insurance. Things are certainly warming up here this morning on a beautiful University of Alabama campus that is just glowing in this sunshine. Fans not letting the early kickoff get in the way of having a little fun. And it was certainly fun the last time these two teams met back in 2014. Fun for Bama anyway. The Blake Sims-led Crimson Tide rolled to an easy 52-12 victory over Southern Mississippi right here at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Amari Cooper led the way with 135 yards receiving and a touchdown. Derrick Henry paced the running backs with 73 yards, but was outscored by Kenyon Drake, who found pay dirt 3 separate times. But it isn't the 2014 matchup that Bama fans first think of when Southern Miss is brought up. It's likely that 2005 game, which was much closer, with the Tide coming away with a 30-21 victory. But what really stands out about that game was the insane athletic circus catch made by Tyrone Prothro that resulted in an Alabama touchdown. CTKO's Alessandra Pontbriand caught up with Pro this week, 14 years after his iconic catch, and she joins us now live on the Walk of Champions with more.
Gary, Tyrone Prothro played wide receiver for Alabama from 2003 until 2005. He totaled 863 total receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. Now, 14 years after that famous Prothro catch, he's in his second year coaching wide receivers for the Jasper Vikings.
4th and 12. Boy lays it up.
That was wide receiver Tyrone Prothro's famous catch against Southern Miss in 2005.
One of the things about that play is my concentration on the ball. You know, a lot of people, I get the question all the time, did you actually see the ball? I saw the ball the whole time. You know, my main thing was watching the ball in, and I actually happened to throw my hands up where I normally would if I was running by myself, and the guy just happened to be in between my arms.
3 weeks after that famous catch, as you can see in this grainy video, Prothro suffered a career-ending injury against the Florida Gators when he shattered his leg.
You know, it's football, so you never know when something like that's going to happen. And for me, it was just kind of making the best out of my situation. Of course, you know, it sucks to, you know, for me to be playing at a high level and then for my career to just be over like that. But, I mean, it's one of those situations where, you know, things happen. I'm a firm believer in things happen for a reason.
Prothro always wanted to be a coach, and now he coaches the wide receivers for the Jasper Vikings, and his boss is thrilled to have him on staff.
He's a lot more than a football coach. You know, he's a good person, and he's done a lot with our kids as far as being a role model. And he doesn't talk about, you know, his injury and his career a lot, but when he does, it's very powerful. You know, and he's got a story that you know, most people can really build their lives on.
His players also praised Prothro's coaching, like wide receiver Xavier Waldrop, who thanks Coach Prothro for helping him on and off the field.
I mean, he showed me a lot. He done helped me through some tough stuff I done had to deal with. He done made me a better player. He done made me more of a leader. And he helping some of the young guys get better now. So he's a great coach, and he done everything he could do for us.
Even though Prothro's football career ended too soon, that famous catch won him an ESPY. And almost 14 years later, people still remember that catch from 2005.
Each and every time we play Southern Miss, and really each and every time, you know, if it's in college football or NFL, when somebody makes a spectacular catch and it's similar to mine, my phone always blows up. But just to, you know, to be compared to, you know, every catch that's similar to that, and, you know, people saying, he got Prothrowed, to have that phrased is just, you know, it's crazy because, it's been 14 years now and people still remember that to this day.
Now, Jasper played last night. They shut out Hayden 58-0. And while Alabama football team, they are a completely different team from 14 years ago, there are still tons of receivers like Jerry Jeudy, who shares Prothrow's number 4. And Gary, maybe he can recreate that famous Prothrow catch today against Southern Miss. Reporting live for Crimson Tide Kickoff on the Walk of Champions, I'm Alessandra Pomprion.
Well, thank you, Alessandra. That's a great story. That play, one of the greatest catches ever in the history of college football, and Prothrow, what a terrific human being. Well, when we come back, we'll take a look at just how prolific Alabama's offense has been this season. That and much more ahead here on Crimson Tide Kickoff, presented by Alpha Insurance. You keep it tuned right here to WVUA 23. Welcome to this week's Burn Point. I'm Gary Harris, joined by the Director of Athletics at the University of Alabama, Greg Byrne, and also the President of NACDA. Now, I want you to explain what NACDA is.
Sure.
But as an AD, this is a big, big deal for you.
Well, NACDA is the National Association of Collegiate Directors of Athletics. It's junior college, Division III, Division II, Division I, all levels of intercollegiate athletics that come together to talk about the industry as a whole, leadership development, and it goes everything from compliance to academics to business office, operations, everything across the board, development. And First time I ever went was 1995, so hard to believe, 24 years ago. And it was in Las Vegas at the Sahara Hotel, which has since been torn down. We're going back to Vegas this year. I'm not even sure which one of the, it's going to be at a few hotels because it's up to 8,000 members. It's a big organization. My dad was actually president in 1992, so we're the first father-son ever to be president of NACDA. So we're excited about that, and my dad will join us out there. He and my mom will join us out there in Las Vegas, and it's a great organization. And as I tell my peers, we can learn and grow in what we do. There's professional training and development, but at the same time too, we have a responsibility to be there and give back to all the future leaders in intercollegiate athletics, because they're looking to us to learn, to grow on what they do. And sometimes younger generations are criticized, or maybe people aren't as hopeful for things. All you got to do is come to NACDA, and you see some of the brightest, sharpest young people in our country, because so many people want to get into college athletics, and there's only so many jobs. And so these people who are able to crack the code, get into intercollegiate athletics, they're really sharp, they're really good. And so to see them and to see the energy, the enthusiasm they bring to what intercollegiate athletics is, it makes me very hopeful, not only for our industry and enterprise of intercollegiate athletics, but also just for our future leadership in our country too.
So it's a huge honor, but it's also a huge responsibility.
It is. It is. Yeah. They're careful to understand that we have full-time jobs in what we're doing as director of athletics at whatever institutions that we are. But it's about probably over the course of the year, it's about a 6 or 7 day commitment of places that I have to be, a couple different places over the course of the year. And I learn and I grow. I go to these things. I learn from the young people who are there, or people, a lot of experience too, and come up with different ideas and what takes place, seeing different vendors. I know there's a lot been made about our new lights at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Well, those are the people you're going to be exposed to learn what are the latest things that we can do to enhance our fan experience, to enhance our student-athlete experience, and try to bring those together. And obviously, when you're at Alabama, everybody wants us to sign up for whatever the latest gizmo is. And so we are often the first ones exposed to those types of things, which can be really good for our program. And NACDA is a great avenue to have that all come together in a very concise, consolidated manner.
And I'm so glad you mentioned the new LED lights at Bryant-Denny Stadium, because it would be a shame to do the burn point every week and not have some point mention those lights. I know it's a little off topic, but I've seen the videos and that are out on social media. Wow.
It's really cool. So we knew we were going to have to replace the lights because we didn't have LEDs. It was starting to get pretty yellow in there, and that's not good for our fans, it's not good for our team, it's not good for television, any of those things. And so we were replacing them. And I went to meet with the folks. I actually went all the way up to the catwalk at the top of Bryant-Denny Stadium, which is your way up there.
I don't know if I could have handled that.
Yeah, and so we were talking with the folks from Musco, and they said, hey, we think there's a chance you can do these new lights that change instantaneously to about any color you want. I said, well, can you do crimson? They said, yes, absolutely. So I hadn't really gotten the final word that yes, we were going through with them, or no, we weren't. They're getting installed, and it was like, oh, by the way, we were able to make the different colored lights work. And so literally we're down there on the field testing the lights out for the first time, and they flipped the switch, and I like to use Twitter, and took a picture of it, and we tweeted it, and it went bonkers. And then 2 days later, I think we did the drone over Bryant-Denny, and I mean, it's really cool. Now all we need is some night games to help show them off. But I think it's going to be a really cool fan enhancement experience and when the team runs out on the field, obviously you're not going to have crimson lights in the middle of plays or anything like that, but during some dead balls and things like that, we'll be able to use those. And again, another fun environment that you can't have by sitting at home and watching it on television. The only way you can be a part of that is being there and being a part of it. It'll also be really cool from a recruiting standpoint for us as well.
No doubt. We had to get that in. One final thought on NACDA, and you alluded to this when we first opened. I think collegiate athletics are healthier than they've ever been, and you seem to feel that way as well.
Yeah, it is. Obviously, what gets paid attention to is controversy. That's what gets clicks and interest, and it needs to be covered. I understand that. At the same time, too, when you're in the middle of it on a daily basis, there are so many outstanding young people. There's so much passion. You check differences at the doors, whether it's politics, whether it's religion, whether it's socioeconomic status, whether it's diversity, and you come together for the Alabama Crimson Tide. That's sacred. It's special. We can't lose sight of that on a daily basis. We need to continue to make our enterprise be as healthy as we can be, but at the same time, too, there's so much good, and sometimes we lose sight of that.
No doubt about it. He's Greg Byrne. I'm Gary Harris, and this has been this week's Burn Point.
Gary, the Tide's offense is all anyone can think. Gary, the Tide's offense is all anyone can talk about. And welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff. I'm Gary Harris, live from the University of Alabama campus. This program presented each week by Alpha Insurance. Well, Alabama's certainly excited to be back home. Last week, the crowd in Columbia, South Carolina was loud and rowdy, and the Tide had to get acclimated to it. If you watch the game closely, you may have noticed right guard Landon Dickerson constantly staring at Tua and then slapping his center's leg. Shortly afterward, the ball was snapped and the play was carried through. This short, subtle movement helped the Tide roll against the Gamecocks, and it came into place due to the loud circumstances at William Bryce Stadium. And this movement also has a short, simple name.
That's called a guard tap. And so what we do is when we go into, mainly away games, whenever crowd noise is really loud, sometimes you can't hear a clap. So I turn around, Tua gives me a signal, I tell the center to snap the ball. So that's all it is. You'll see me look back, I'll go over, I'll hit CO, come back, get set, and then we snap the ball.
And the guard tap helped Dickerson earn an individual honor as he was named the SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week. The redshirt junior turned in his most consistent performance as a member of the Crimson Tide. He saw 58 snaps at guard, did not allow a quarterback hurry, pressure, or sack against the Gamecocks. He was good on all assignments and helped Alabama roll up 576 yards of total offense. And Landon's efforts certainly helped out his quarterback. Tua shined in his first SEC matchup of 2019, going 28 of 36 for 444 yards and 5 touchdowns. With this day in Columbia, Tua became the first quarterback in Alabama history to throw for 400-plus yards and 5 touchdowns in the same game. His 444 yards through the air were a new career high and ranked as the 3rd most in a single game in program history. Tua's 5 touchdown passes matched his career best mark, which he previously set last season against Auburn. So suffice to say, the Alabama offense looked unstoppable last week, and the Tides looked that way for most of the season so far. So the early results look good, but Bama wants more. CTKO's Haley Wiggum joins us now live on the Walk of Champions with more on Bama's high-flying offense. Haley?
Gary, the Tide's offense is all anyone can talk about. But for this team, it's about more than just a game.
The Crimson Tide is said to have one of the most powerful offenses in the game. To most, being recognized for such a high-quality offensive team is considered an honor. But to the members of the Tide, it's just doing their job.
I mean, it's great to get recognition, but at the same time, I mean, if you look at it, it's really just doing your job, and that's kind of the standard that you want to go to. It's not, I don't see it as anything really special. It's just, I got acknowledged for doing my job. That's kind of what it means.
A key part of their success is their wide receivers. Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Jalen Waddle, and Devontae Smith each have over 1,000 career receiving yards. But at the end of the day, it isn't all about the stats, but the love the players have for the game.
So when we do make a play and you see a guy, with your jersey on, make a block or chasing you downfield, it just feels like the whole team made a play. It's just all about having fun. We always talk about having fun with each other, and we just feel like if we feel we're not having fun, then why are we doing it?
And the Tide will get to have some fun today on the field as they take on the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. Live from the Walk of Champions for Crimson Tide Kickoff, I'm Haley Wickham. Gary?
Thank you, Haley. And for as good as the offense has been, we did see a wrinkle last week against South Carolina. In the third quarter, redshirt freshman Slade Bolden lined up behind center, and he took the Wildcat snap. He converted on the play, and he figures to be another weapon for the Alabama offense going forward. Additionally, Bolden is an outstanding special teams contributor, and he had a key stop on a South Carolina fake punt. His great play has gotten head coach Nick Saban's attention.
Well, he's a core special teams guy that has really developed nicely for us, and he's done a really good job in that regard. He also was a high school quarterback who we just thought, maybe there's, something that we could utilize him in short yardage, and he does a good job of that. And every time we play a running quarterback, he's the scout team quarterback for us doing all these kind of things. So, just something that we thought we could take advantage of.
Well, we're about halfway through CTKO, but we're really just getting cranked up. When we come back, we'll be joined by Alabama women's golf coach Mick Potter, National Championship Hall of Fame coach. We'll be right back with Mick Potter on this edition of CTKO. I'm going to, again, obviously I want to mention the team 2 years ago because I still think that was one of the best teams in women's collegiate golf history, given a championship, and how it's kind of been transitioned since that time. We'll get to your team, obviously, this year.
Am I supposed to be hearing you?
You will when we come up on
Okay.
air. Hey, Daniel, Mick will hear me once we come back on air, right? Yeah. Glenn, you play any golf lately? No. I bet you could get a tee time right now at Old Colony. You wouldn't have a lot of competition.
You're watching Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23.
And welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff presented by Alpha Insurance. I'm Gary Harris, joined by Alabama women's golf coach Mick Potter, but that just tells part of the story. National championship coach, Hall of Famer. Listen, when you're a Hall of Famer,
That can't get old when people introduce you that way. I mean, that's special.
Well, that was a long time ago.
I know,
You
but
kind
still.
of feel like you have to keep earning
That's
it
right.
again and again.
Well, you have. You won one national championship a couple years ago, and we've talked about this. You had the best team in the country. Best team in the country doesn't always win. You lost a heartbreaking match to Arizona, but you were loaded with talent. But unfortunately, when you've got that type of great talent, they've got professional golf aspirations. That team kind of came apart in a hurry. Last year was really a transitional season. Now, going into this fall and spring, have you been able to kind of replenish the roster a little bit, Coach?
Yeah, I feel really good about this year's team, and you know, it's a tough deal because girls want to get out there and play as soon as they can because they have a shelf life as far as longevity is concerned. And look, the girls that departed early are really good.
Yeah, really.
And they can play out there. So, you know, our job is to keep them interested in the University of Alabama and their degree and playing college golf. And the girls that did depart early have all graduated.
Sure.
So I'm proud of that. But yeah, this year's team is very good. They're young, and they got to get their feet wet, and we got to improve their short games, but a lot of talent on this team.
Yeah, you're getting some experience right now in the fall season, which is vitally important to, like you said, getting experience, working on short game and other little intricacies to get ready for the spring.
Right. So, you know, women's golf, men's golf also, but the SEC championship, the regionals, is probably our most important tournament because you can't win the national championship if you're not there. And then the NCAA championship, all in April and May, are what we're sort of building toward and shooting for.
Recruiting's the lifeblood, and you've got an excellent track record. And even though you had some players maybe leave before you would hope they would have left, it doesn't hurt, as you said, to have all your former athletes on the pro tours. In addition to playing for national championships, being able to pitch, hey, listen, you come here, you play for me, get your degree, and then you got a career ahead of you in professional golf. That's a pretty good pitch.
Right. And, you know, most of the girls we recruit and are on our team want to play professional golf if the opportunity is there when they get to that age. So, yeah, I think it's a benefit to have those girls out there, and it's a recruiting pitch. And then, you know, look at the atmosphere and the surroundings, and so it's actually a little easier than people might think. But you still have to get out there and identify that talent and get them here on campus so they can see what we have.
All right, young, talented roster. Got through last year, which was definitely a transition year, potentially for the spring. How do you feel about this team if they come together? Is this a team, obviously, that could get into the NCAA tournament and push toward competing for a national championship?
Yeah, I think everybody has to play to their level of ability most of the time. And, you know, the great thing about, and you mentioned the NCAA championship at Oklahoma State, we probably were the best team, but match play, anything can happen, and it's compelling television, and it's great for our game. But for us, if we can get through stroke play into match play, we have the ability to beat anybody.
Oh, that Nat's driving us crazy. Real quickly, Angelica Marasco. She goes back to that era. How big a leader is she for you, particularly with all these young players?
Well, she's a pretty laid-back girl, and she doesn't let too much bother her, but she's seen both sides of it. And in her case, she's ecstatic to be on this team, and you know, it's everybody pulling together kind of situation, and she leads that effort, and she's very supportive of our coaching, Susan Rosensteel and myself, our coaching staff. These girls all listen. They want to be coached, and she's a big part of that.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, good to see you.
Thank you,
Good
Gary.
luck in
Thanks
the
for
season.
having me.
All right, when we come back here on Crimson Tide Kickoff, we already took a look at the offense, but what about the defense? Bama has shown spurts of really good play, yet they're young, there have been injuries, and it is a question mark. More on the D when Crimson Tide Kickoff, presented by Alpha Insurance, returns here on WVUA 23.
We were at practice one day, and by the way, you have to understand that nobody actually touched Coach Bryant's towel during practice. I don't know why, you just didn't do it. And we were at practice, and I looked up on the tower, and there was this tall, hump-shouldered, kind of young guy, long hair. And I can remember, I said, who the hell is that? And some guy said, that was some guy named Joe Namath. We later learned how to pronounce it. We had a situation with him one time at the stadium. We were doing a scrimmage. And Coach Bryant put the ball on the 10-yard line and tell you better get it in the end zone. And he'd tell defense, you better not let him in the end zone. So that sort of situation. But Joe, anyway, rolls out, and he goes for, he's going to pass a run. And he starts off for the end zone, and he dives, and his knee and body hit about the 1-yard line, but the ball was in the end zone. Well, I give up touchdown. Well, all the coaches come running out screaming and hollering when you see it. And I remember telling Coach Bryant that the ball's where the ball is when his knee hit. And I remember he looked at me and he said, you better know what you're talking about. And I went home and I read every rule book that's ever been printed. I think I called NCAA. I double and triple checked it. And I think as I remember the next day, we were going by one time, he said, you were right. Whew. Scary.
Well, the man has got a million stories. Eddie Conyers, longtime practice official at the University of Alabama. He's seen it all, from Bryant, Namath to Saban and Tua. Welcome back to CTKO, presented by Alpha Insurance. I'm Gary Harris. We took a look at the offense earlier in the show, and all seems to be fine and dandy on that side of the ball for Coach Sark and company. But defensively, Alabama seems to be, not struggling, but not where Nick Saban would like it to be. And in order to get back to the physical brand of Bama defense, they're going to need some leadership. Enter senior defensive lineman Raekwon Davis, a physically imposing figure in the trenches. Number 99 is 6'7", 310 pounds, and he's also looking to grow as a leader for the Tide. And it's not just about being the enforcer or leading the stretching lines. For Raekwon, it's about getting back to being himself and having fun while playing the game he loves and sparking his team emotionally.
It's just my energy. I just want to just give to the team. Like situation like that, I just want to just let them see how my energy is, and I know once they see my energy, it's gonna make them feel some type of way. So they're gonna get all pumped up and ready to go. So I don't want to I just want something different,
And Bama's going to need that Raekwon energy in order to get back to playing to the Bama standard. The defense certainly hasn't been bad. It's been good, but good isn't good enough at Alabama. And with youth in place at linebacker and up front, this entire unit knows there's plenty of room for improvement. CTKO's Julia Daniels explains.
Last weekend, the Tide rolled on with a 47-23 win over the South Carolina Gamecocks. But despite the victory, Coach Saban and the team feel as though the defense needs some improvement on both small and large concepts.
Defensively, we played well at times, but, we made some mental errors that allowed them to, keep possession of the ball, which is not a good thing, but made some big red area stops that, kept them off the board, got a couple turnovers. But I think there's a lot of things that we can improve on, and the number one thing is we got way too many penalties. We shot ourselves in the foot on both sides of the ball. These that we got in this game, were unforced errors, jumping off sides, things like that, critical situations, not substituting correctly on defense. I mean, we cannot put ourselves in those positions. 3rd and 10 is a whole lot different than 3rd and 5. So you get an offsides or whatever, and it makes it 3rd and 5, and they hit a big play because you're playing different kind of coverages.
Senior defensive back Trayvon Diggs says that one thing the defense can improve on is the leadership, along with the little things.
I feel like I could be a better leader on the defense as far as doing things, the right way. Being influenced on guys of tackling and, just doing the little things right, little things that, we're going to need or, it's going to get us beat. So I feel I could do a better job in leading in that.
Senior defensive lineman Raekwon Davis says the defense will use the South Carolina game as a learning tool as they head into even more big SEC play.
It's just watching the film and just know we're going to be like, we got we got a lot of SEC teams. We got different teams that do different stuff. So we're going to use this film just to learn from it.
For Crimson Tide Kickoff, I'm Julia Daniels.
Thanks, Julia. And Southern Miss, like South Carolina, is looking to exploit some of those holes in the Bama D. Another area that Bama needs improvement is controlling the penalties. Last week, the Tide was flagged 11 times against the Gamecocks, which cost them 92 yards. That's not going to get it. Through 3 games, Bama's averaging well over 7 penalties a game, which is 102nd best in the nation. And Nick Saban emphasized that the sloppy, undisciplined actions need to be nipped in the bud ASAP.
A lot of these penalties that we got in this game, you know, were unforced errors, you know, jumping off sides, you know, things like that, critical situations, not substituting correctly on defense. I mean, we cannot put ourselves in those positions. 3rd and 10 is a whole lot different than 3rd and 5. So you get an offsides or whatever, and it makes it 3rd and 5, and they hit a big play because you're playing different kind of coverages.
Well, 2 weeks ago in Alabama's home opener, the new student loyalty app designed to offer incentives for students to stay the entire game crashed and burned during its debut. With another hot afternoon kickoff awaiting once the game gets going, Bama students and fans today are hoping that the new app's issues have been resolved. And the UA administration certainly hopes that the stands remain full for 4 quarters. CTKO's William Galloway has the story.
2 weeks ago in Alabama's home opener versus New Mexico State, the Tide Loyalty Points app crashed and many students were left scrambling to get credit points for attending the game. Crowds of students swarmed tables by the exit gates of Bryant-Denny Stadium to sign their name and campus-wide identification numbers on sheets of paper.
I think the sign-in sheets was just terrible. Like the lines and just wasn't very efficient, didn't make much sense to me. We just kind of took a picture with the timestamp of the 4th quarter so they knew we were there.
The app allows students who stayed the whole game to send in pictures and request an appeal. Those appeals were granted, and since that game, a full review has been conducted to help ensure no future technical issues. Today, students will scan in for the 11 a.m. kickoff game versus Southern Miss. Despite the uproar from fans about the lack of night games in September, Alabama players don't mind the early kickoff times and treat each game the same, whether it's a conference or non-conference game.
Nah, I mean, it's whatever time. I mean, whatever time is scheduled, that's when it's scheduled. I mean, I ain't got no control of that.
I mean, you just have to play every game the same. You treat every opponent with respect. That's how it works. You can't take anybody for granted.
Coach Saban expects his team to compete for 60 minutes and believes the fans should be held to the same standard.
You know, I think it enhances the value of our program if our stadium is full and people stay for 60 minutes in the game. All right, so from my standpoint, I always want to see the stadium full and I want to see people stay for 60 minutes in the game. If I ask that whole student section, all right, do you want to be number 1? Nobody would put their hand up and say, I want to be number 4. They would all say, we want to be number 1. But are they willing to do everything to be number 1? That's another question.
Since 2014, Alabama has played in 10 non-conference day games in the month of September. That's more than any other team in the Southeastern Conference. Reporting for Crimson Tide Kickoff, I'm William Galloway.
Nice job, William. Play for 4, stay for 4, right? We'll see if that holds true this afternoon. We're still not finished here on CTKO. Coming up, I'll catch up with Griff Redmill from the 1999 SEC Championship team, and there is a look not only at the Walk of Champions, but inside Bryant-Denny Stadium as the two teams are warming up. Kickoff is a little over 40 minutes away. We got you covered here on Crimson Tide Kickoff, presented by Alpha Insurance. And welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff, presented by Alpha Insurance. I'm Gary Harris, joined just next to our set area. We moved out here to get outside and visit with Griff Redmill, former Alabama starting offensive lineman, member of the 1999 SEC championship team under Mike DeBose. That team's going to be honored pregame today. And you look back on that team, it's hard to believe it's been 20 years ago, Griff.
I know, it really is. Some days it seems like it was yesterday, and then other days look back and it seems like it was 100 years ago. But great memories.
That was really a special team because it was not without adversity. We remember the loss to Louisiana Tech. It seemed like there were some differences in coaching staff opinions, but that team came together, won for the first time ever at Auburn, had that heartbreaking loss to Tom Brady in the Orange Bowl. But that was a really good football team, beat Florida twice.
Yeah, it was a special team to be a part of. We had our share of adversity and ups and downs early in the season, but we could really feel something come together as we approached that Florida game in Gainesville. And I believe they hadn't been beaten 30, 31, 32 home games there. And but everybody on that airplane flying down to Gainesville felt something special was about to happen, and it did, and it turned the whole season around for us.
It sure did, and you did it once. And a lot of people said, I know you as a player, you remember this, that was a fluke. Crazy game. When they get to Atlanta, Florida will show them who's boss. And my gosh, y'all just steamrolled.
Yeah, it was. That was a lot of fun because you're right. Nobody believed that we could beat them in Gainesville, and if there were any more people that didn't think we could do it again, there were more pundits the second go around, and we really came out that night and took it to them and capped the season off with the first conference championship in I think 10 years.
Yeah, and winning at Auburn. The first Iron Bowl had been played there in 1989. Auburn had won every time Alabama and Auburn had played there. That team broke through.
Oh yeah, that was a great one too to be a part of. I was a freshman the time before when we lost the heartbreaker on that last drive fumble, and they kicked the field goal to go ahead and beat us. So it was a really special game to be a part of the first time doing that in Jordan-Hare.
We won't talk about 2000 because that one kind of went off the rails. But watching what Coach Saban has built here as an Alabama alum, as a former player, I mean, you just have to pinch yourself and say, my gosh, I heard, because you were a little boy when Coach Bryant was finishing up. I mean, a baby, really. So you heard about those years, but you really didn't experience them. To see this dynasty, what's that been like?
Well, it's really, I don't know that people really can have a true understanding and appreciation for what he's done here as a former player and playing through up and down experience where we had some success and we had a lot of downs. To see the consistency that he's been able to establish here and year out, contend for a championship, it's really impressive to be able to put that kind of string of consistency together for this many years in a row.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And finally, to get back here on campus and visit with your teammates from 20 years ago, it's special. I know there's a few of them that aren't with us anymore. I think of Victor Ellis comes to mind. But it's got to be a great time to reminisce and tell those old war stories.
It is. We don't get very many opportunities to do this, and I try to keep up with as many of these guys as possible. But you know how it is. Life gets busy. People get spread apart, and so when you have an opportunity to take advantage of quality time like this, you got to take advantage of it. So I'm looking forward to getting up at the A-Club room and seeing some of these guys and trading some old stories.
Griff, good to see you, buddy.
Thank you, Gary.
And Crimson Tide Kickoff will return from the University of Alabama campus right after this. And welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff. I'm Gary Harris. We played this game today with heavy hearts. The Tuscaloosa community suffered a tragic loss on Monday evening when Tuscaloosa police officer Dornell Cousette was shot and killed in the line of duty. On Wednesday, the University of Alabama lit up Bryant-Denny Stadium in blue to honor the fallen Cousette, and it was touching. TPD also parked Officer Cousette's police car on the Walk of Champions for family, loved ones, and community members to stop by and pay their final respects. The tributes didn't stop there. All week long, local high schools as well as UA have been asking fans to wear blue to the game in Cousette's honor. Alabama head coach Nick Saban offered his condolences on Wednesday night.
You know, it's a terrible tragedy in our community that we lost a police officer on Monday night, and I would like to know that, you know, our entire program, all the players, coaches, everybody in the organization, our family, our thoughts and prayers go out to his family.
Well, the 11 a.m. kickoff, not so bad considering it feels absolutely amazing compared to the last home game we had here in Bryant-Denny. So taking a look at our temperatures right now, 79 in Tuscaloosa, 77 in Birmingham, and your sweatcast for the day. We are looking at dry, comfy conditions all the way through the entire afternoon, and your game forecast is going to be shaping up just like this. We're looking at the start of the game, temperatures in the low 80s and heating up to the upper 80s by the end of the game. That's your game forecast.
Well, thank you, Danielle. That's going to do it this morning for Crimson Tide Kickoff, the early edition. A reminder, you can watch Nick Saban's press conference after the game on WVUA23.com. Join Alessandro Pontbriand tonight at 10 for a complete recap. For everybody here at CTKO, have a great day. Roll Tide.